What's up, guys? What's up? It's time for another episode of CarBiz Leaders Live featuring the principal's office, where I like to say it's the only principal's office where you actually would like to come to. Today, I have an extra special guest. We're supposed to have Igor Skinder from VW, but he got into a volleyball accident and tore his Achilles. So he's on his way to the emergency room. We plan to talk a lot of smack about you, Igor. Um, Jimmy and I, all amazing things in the EV space. And he's just one of those people who has an infectious energy that I can't wait for you to learn from. So without further ado, we're going to get this party started. We are now going to begin CarBiz Leaders Live featuring the principal's office. It's going to be an epic show. Can't wait. And maybe I can. And let's start this show. And now let us welcome Jimmy Douglas. What's up, Jimmy? How are you?
Great, Rachel. Good to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Could you tell a little bit to maybe those folks out there that don't know you, a little bit about who you are and how you came into this crazy auto business?
Yeah, for sure. If you go far back enough, you'll find me as a 17-year-old on the front lines of a Volkswagen dealer, starting as a porter and then becoming a service advisor and then an internet salesperson. And that's how I put myself through college. And it's also how I developed arguably unhealthy car addiction. I think I owned 30 different vehicles before I turned 30 years old. And from there, I took a bit of a detour into a technology startup career before landing back into the space when I joined Tesla back in 2018. And I was there for 5 years, serving in various operations leadership roles, including running sales operations and used cars across North America. And only more recently, about 7 months ago, actually, my last day was 7 months ago, I left and founded Plug, my new company.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so that's how you became really good friends with Igor then, because you guys got that Volkswagen bond going on, like deep.
Yeah, I definitely had a great time.
A passion for the Volkswagen brand?
Yeah, no, I do. I definitely had a really great time running him through like my lineup of all the GTIs and R32s and Audis that I had owned over the years. And only recently did I get behind the wheel of an ID4 for the very first time, thanks to his help. And yeah, that passion is one of those things where if you're a VW person, you can't ever really get rid of it. It sticks with you forever.
Yes, I will still tell you stories all about it. So, it's one of those cars, it's iconic, you know? So tell us a little bit about Plug and that how that business came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to level set on what Plug is, it's an online wholesale marketplace that facilitates the buying and selling of used electric vehicles among a network of dealers and fleet operators. And it makes the data layer required to confidently transact in electric vehicles more transparent and democratized, because electric vehicles are a fundamentally different asset than combustion cars. Their usefulness and their utility is more of a derivative of their computer hardware and
Mhm.
software enabled features, their battery, their access to a destination charging network, all of which are really important data points for any would be buyers, both at the points of wholesale and at retail. And generally speaking, when those vehicles exchange hands in legacy systems, access to those data points is generally not available or not always accurate or reliably present. So we're taking a different approach to that in the wholesale market, leveraging the fact that EVs are computers on wheels with APIs where that data can be directly harvested
Yeah,
and indexed in its original format and served up in a marketplace where everybody can transact in the context of that information.
that's awesome. I think more and more dealers want to learn more about EVs. We've got some comments, Jimmy, because we're live. Roger says, "Hi, Jimmy." He's from Houston. So we've got Angela saying she loves this and the German suspension. We can't beat it. And then Roger also commented, "Live anything is dangerous," which we already know. It always happens right when we go live, like something goes ballistic. Either the internet goes funky woo or something crazy. But I think that's what makes it authentic, right? It's like, how can we overcome these challenges? So, speaking of internet challenges, what are some of the challenges that you've faced in your business recently?
Yeah, absolutely. As most people know, as you certainly know, building a company from nothing will hit you with an unlimited number of challenges, right? From raising capital to getting your very first customers to believe in you to recruiting the foundational members of your team. And I think the part that's been equal parts challenging and rewarding has been the act of putting together the foundational team that is building what Plug will ultimately become. And it started with bringing on the first engineering hire, who is now our CTO, Saul Diaz Guerra. And I met with 25 different people in the context of recruiting for a founding engineer before I met Saul. And um, he comes from a rich background of bringing companies from 0 to 1, as we call it. He was a chief technology officer at a company that exited through the portfolio of one of our biggest Czech investors. And he is a really great counterbalance to me as CEO, because I'm of one of a great like optimism and salespersonship and sort of vision. And what he brings to the table in equal weighting is the ability to hone all of that into something that is structured and enables us to ensure that we say yes to the right things, but also no to the right things in pursuit of finding a product market fit well in advance of what we otherwise would if there wasn't somebody who was sort of serving as that counterbalance. So that's been really impactful. And the second most recent hire that we just made, Tien Duong, who most recently actually ran North America wide remarketing at VinFast, and prior to that was on my operations team at Tesla. And
Mhm.
finding somebody who can work from an operations leadership standpoint with respect to the stack that's required to operate a confident and highly liquid marketplace with enough experience, hands on, and attention to detail to understand the inner workings is a really insane challenge, because very few people can speak the leadership language and work cross functionally across all departments and interact
Mhm.
with suppliers and vendors and negotiate with them, while also having real, true hands-on experience and the ability to draw from it. So finding those two people and then showing them a path to Plug being the most optimal next career move for them was certainly a challenge in itself, but a very rewarding one. And I'm grateful that they're here.
Well, it seems like you have an excellent team of people behind you, and growing a company from scratch does have its challenges, and everyone's got to wear multiple hats. I love how you guys have this like symbiotic relationship where like it's a safe no, right? I don't have that sometimes, and I wish I did, because I think it's important when you are the ultimate boss to say, I don't know if that's such a good idea, and somebody who's strong enough to stand up to you on that. So, and it comes down to really just making sure that you're providing the right value, and I think that you have it. I think there's this solution that you're delivering is in an untapped marketplace, right? There's not a lot of people who are doing what you're doing. Kind of what sets you apart from everybody else out there. I want to focus on that. I would like to hear it from you.
Yeah, definitely. So it's the right question to ask. In fact, basically everybody is asking is why do we need yet another marketplace for what feels like a very niche product? And let's make no mistake, it is a pretty niche product. EVs only account for 1% of the used car market today. So to some extent, people rightfully even ask me why I'm even talking about this right now. But it comes back to the point around them being fundamentally different assets and the fact that the required information is generally not present for all sides of the transaction to be equally informed. And that puts downward pressure on units that otherwise deserve to transact at either more favorable values or at least more quickly. And because EVs are such volatile assets compared to combustion vehicles, given that they are affected by regulatory action and tax credits, pricing fluctuation, technological advancement, the need for velocity is actually greater than the need on used cars in general, which is already the primary metric. From there, optimizing around velocity and figuring out how to make the cars change hands the fastest, particularly for dealers who receive them as trade-ins that don't specialize in EVs. That's where we're really going to be differentiating, because about 75% of dealers that have any used EVs at all are dealers that are not specializing in them, and they might just have one or two that they received as trade-ins, and they might be able to sell that car. A dealer that specializes in EVs will likely sell that car 25 to 40% faster for about the same value. And in today's very high interest rate, expensive floor plan environment, that turn time is more critical than ever. So democratizing access to that information layer and then finding the quickest path to liquidation to a curated network of EV specialized dealers is where we really plan to differentiate ourselves.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a 1% market. I mean, and it's brand spanking new. So in 10 years from now, this won't be a niche market for you, and you will have perfected along the way. I love that Roger's all about your team, because it really is all about the team behind it and the mission. And I just think that there are so many dealers out there, even people themselves, who are reluctant. I haven't bought into the whole EV wave yet, but I also am a Detroit native, so we give me my gas and I'm going to be on my way, America. But it is the future. It is where automotive is going. And I think you've picked really the perfect time to get started. So when it comes to the successes, let's talk. I mean, we know you talked about gathering your team, but let's talk about some of the success that you've had and where you think you could really bring this company.
Yeah, definitely recruiting the team so far, and the exciting recruiting pipeline we have in front of us is what I'm the most proud of. I'd say another
Mhm,
success is where we landed in our customer discovery journey, and
mhm,
it's really tempting, especially after coming out of my last career, where I was in a very fast-paced, very week by week, day by day achievement seeking environment to get caught into the trap of
mhm,
building and having something to show for our time and our investors' money as quickly as possible. And there was tension between that and investing very significant time into discovery. And what that looked like was pretty unglamorous. Getting on planes, going rooftop to conferences, getting on calls, and really just asking the highest level, most abstract questions possible to see what feedback we would get back. And our favorite question to ask was, "What's going on with EVs?" And just leave it at that. And
mhm,
we learned a tremendous amount. One of the learnings that we had was where a product like this can add the most value in the shortest period of time. Because I think in the long term, there's a lot of applications with respect to remarketing and off lease and defleeting and rental car
mhm,
in very high volume. But one of the anecdotes that we picked up in our discovery and then in our data aggregation was just the clear divide between uh, dealers who specialize in used EVs, of which there are not very many right now, and dealers who do not yet, and the reasons that they do not yet.
mhm,
And as it turns out, uh, specializing in used EVs is a function of the culture within your store being ready to embrace it, but also the community that you're inside of. And it's not always necessarily up to the general manager or the general sales manager or the used car manager if that's going to turn into an EV center of excellence. So much can influence that based on the ubiquity of um, DC fast or destination charging within the area, or state level incentives that can stack on top of the Inflation Reduction Act. This
mhm.
enormous treasure trove of learnings has compounded into our ability to identify who our ideal customer profile is in the very beginning and focus very intensely on them. And what it looks like on the demand side of that marketplace is there's about 300 rooftops that account for 30% of all used EV sales in the country, and we know who they are. And we are in talks with many of them. I have a lot of them in my phone, and I encourage them to text me daily. And on the flip side of that, there are over 8,000 stores that might receive a vehicle here and there that would benefit from our technology, but uh, it's not fair to
Mhm,
ask them to invest a bunch of time into making that happen. So, situating our tech to make it really simple for
mhm.
any dealer to serve that vehicle up within our marketplace the moment it's received as a trade-in has been a point of focus for us on our technology. And I think it's a huge win for us that we know exactly where to focus now in our upcoming release.
Um, Roger wants to ask a question. Thank you, Roger, for being so awesome. He says,
We
"Can
love
you
Roger.
explain why most EVs really aren't a used as iced used vehicles? Now you can ICE used vehicles aren't
Yeah,
used as ICE used vehicles. Anyway, do you know what he's talking about there?
I do. Yeah. So Roger, Roger is a studier, and he's been studying this market very intensely.
Mhm.
So I have a feeling he might know where I'm going to go with this, but I'll be curious to find out. Um, we actually don't know really how long the useful life of most EVs will be. I hold the belief that it will
Mhm.
be very normal in the not so distant future for shoppers to be comparing 300,000-mile EVs against one another as part of a used EV buying journey, which is counterintuitive in today's world because,
Mhm.
generally speaking, you're not shopping for 300,000-mile cars. Um, so much of that car's useful life is tied to things like the high voltage battery pack. And most EVs are so new that we don't
Mhm.
actually have great data that show exactly how long they will be useful in that EV passenger vehicle application before that battery pack has to be removed and recycled and used for something else. One of the only data sets that we have that gives us an indication into it exists inside of Tesla's environmental impact report that they published not too long ago, where they shared data around the broader Model S and X fleet that has crossed over
Mhm.
200,000 miles. And that fleet in aggregate has retained about 88% of its high voltage battery pack capacity. So those cars,
Mhm.
for the most part, are about 90% as useful as they were when they were brand new at 200K miles. So we
Mhm.
don't even know exactly what the future holds in terms of the longevity of these assets, or what maybe some of the fixed ops opportunities are in terms of reconditioning and refurbishing down the road that keeps them driving. But uh, the difference that I think Roger might be alluding to or asking the question around is how long is the useful life of these cars? And the answer is we don't know yet, but we think it's a really long time.
Well, I hope so because, that's the whole point of these EVs in the first place is really just to kind of protect our environment. And I would hope that they would go an extremely long time. Um, and even if we could just, worst case scenario, recycle the batteries, I hope that we can, that would just be a win-win for everybody involved. And for those people who, really don't want to go get a new car every single time, like maybe they can't afford it, or really it's just making sure that there's a lot of value in the long term for that vehicle. Now let's talk about some EVs because there's a lot of fun ones out there. I like the Lucid design. I'm not gonna lie. I think,
Did you see the Galaxy? I just saw it in person at the LA Auto Show last week. It's really nice.
oh no, I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna have to check it out. I'm gonna go Google it when we get off of this podcast. I can't
Yeah.
wait. The body work, I just think this is what a lot of the US automakers are missing the boat. We want that new style. We want something that screams like this is new and high tech. And I think that's where a lot of the automakers today are failing um, with that. And let's make some fancy stuff. But the Galaxy is awesome.
Yeah, the Lucid Galaxy is great. And I think in general, right, like what we're seeing in terms of design language is a deeper emphasis on aerodynamics, right? Because so much of creating an efficiently driving vehicle with respect to how much battery pack is required is reducing that drag coefficient. And when we think about super aerodynamic cars, we think of supercars, right? Like Lamborghinis and Ferraris, especially like the timeless designs going back to the 80s.
Mhm.
So increasingly, I think we're starting to see some of that aerodynamicism built into the design language of these vehicles as a means for accelerating range. But then there's the other side of the coin, which is some of the retro throwback. And I do wish Igor was able to make it today because one of my favorite cars to talk about is the VW ID Buzz, which I also got to check out at the auto show. And it's just as amazing in person as you would think.
Oh, I'm very excited because I love it. And yes, Igor, how could he have done this to himself? He's a little naughty for doing that, but we'll forgive him. We'll forgive him this once. And by the way, everybody, he promised that he would make this up to us. So we will have him on here again. Now let's talk about just a little bit of personal, if you don't mind, Jimmy. You started. I heard you recently moved. You had a little baby. and you started a business all at once. What were you thinking?
I'm not sure if I was thinking. Yeah, that's definitely playing life in hard mode. Quit your job, move cities, have a baby, start a company all at the same time. I think, honestly, Rachel, so much of the willingness and the courage and almost like the untempered intent to build a company was a result of becoming a father. I'd had entrepreneurial aspirations for years, probably my entire
Mhm.
life, and so much of that is a byproduct of watching my father go through it a couple of times and having some wins and losses himself. But for one reason or another, there was always like an excuse like why this year was not the year. But after my son was born, and a couple months later, my wife Steph and I were sitting together at dinner for my birthday, which is a couple days before Christmas. She asked what I wanted out of this year, which I was turning 38, and I said I really want this to be the year that we take the plunge and build a business, so that that can be what Luca, my son, witnesses me doing with the time that I have to spend away from him. And to which Steph replies, "Yeah, that's great. That's what you said a year ago." And
Yeah.
that hit me in a certain way. And the timing just also felt right. I already had spent a little bit of time addressing the used EV market and sizing up its growth potential and sort of the timing of that growth curve. And we are a little bit early on paper to be building this product. But what I know about the growth curve is that it's exponential over the next decade, and it really starts heating up a couple years from now. So now my secret is everybody's secret. So the timing really does feel right to get started and skate where the puck is going. And if you're going to make a big change in your life, you might as
Mhm.
well go big. Los Angeles is the most dense EV market in the country. It's a very opportunistic environment to be building a startup in this space. And it happens to be a great place for my kid to grow up. So we just decided to do everything at the same time.
Well, that is unbelievable. And you know what? If it ain't hard, it's not worth it. I just want to say thank you. Um, Last advice before I tell everybody to support you, love you, send their EVs to you, connect with you. Last advice for people who, when it seems tough, because you made it tough, but sometimes life is tough with whether you make it that way or not. So let's give some final advice out there for some people who might just need to build in a business.
Yeah, for me, it's all about who I'm surrounding myself with. And that's actually been one of the great things about getting embedded into the community that I have as a result of building this business, coming out of Used Car Week and Presidio and other industry events. It really is a community. And I believe that we are all sort of destined to become a byproduct of the people that we spend most of our time around. So if you have entrepreneurial aspirations, you best believe it's a great idea to surround yourself with other people who are company builders or empire builders or people who are as ambitious with you or make you feel like maybe you're not being ambitious enough, because normalizing those types of risks and what it takes to get to the other side of it can make the journey feel a lot less lonely and enables you to benefit from what other people have learned a few steps ahead of you.
Well, thank you so much. Vin, contact Jimmy, support his business. Let's raise it up. He's doing amazing things. He's got a big company, he's got big visions, and he's only just getting started. So, for those of you out there that don't know about enough about EVs, Jimmy's your guy, and we're gonna watch him grow like a weed. I'm so grateful for your time today, sir. I know you're busy. Thank you for just going along with me on my journey. It's amazing. Like, subscribe, share amongst your friends, and honestly, Jimmy, you've been amazing. So, and Igor, we'll see you on the next one.
We miss you, Igor. And
All right.
thank you, Rachel, for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, guys. Listen, for those of you who want to get in touch with Jimmy, thank you, and have a good night, guys. Talk to you.